Hello worldies and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk again about Exoticals, and I want to talk about how many people perceive us as having an unfair societal advantage, and I want to talk about where that basically comes from and how that manifests. So what I mean when I say that is that I feel like many times we are not confined to the same very neat societal boxes that other people are when they don't benefit from ambiguity. And so, people don't necessarily meet us all the time and automatically apply negative stereotypes to us. But I want to focus most of this video around talking about freedom. One of the things that makes me feel the most carefree is, I think, not just that I guess it's kind of the same thing. It's like, it's people I don't believe apply negative stereotypes to me automatically. But even if they did, I feel freer because I don't perceive the world that way. So whether that is delusion, whether that is, I guess I kind of give people a fair shot to just dislike me. Like, you can just dislike me and it could have nothing to do with my race. It could have, there's a multitude of different reasons you cannot like me. You cannot like me because I talk too much. That's a good reason to not like me. That doesn't have anything to do with my color. But I feel like because of that, and many of Exoticals that I've met feel freer to just kind of be who they are, because they're, even for your own self, your identity kind of feels a lot more like one of one, as opposed to one of this huge group where everybody's the same. And I feel that people, when they do jump right to applying negative stereotypes on somebody, that oftentimes I think happens because they are not caught up in trying to place them. I feel like with an Exotical, people are still caught up trying to place you ethnically and culturally, because I think those are two pieces of the puzzle, and you're very mysterious to people, and so they want to figure you out. And when they are trying to do that, it's like, for example, one trick that people or that I use personally, if let's say I'm trying to calm myself down, I will start counting backwards at random intervals. Like for example, I won't count backwards from 100 by 5s or 10s, something that would be easy. I'll do it by like 7s or something. And there is neuroscience behind this, but when your brain is basically trying to figure something out, it's harder to be upset and experience those strong negative emotions. And that means that when people meet us, we don't necessarily always just bring those out by default, unless we're triggering somebody else's PTSD. Like if we looked like their bully, if we look like the girl that rejected them, then if they have not handled that, then they will have a lot of feelings in that way. But I feel like people, when it comes to the things that make us so mysterious, people will be trying to figure out, like I said, not just your ethnic background, but also your cultural background. I feel like even your family story, trying to figure out the ethnic and cultural backgrounds of your parents, trying to figure out how you ended up in the country that you did, how you ended up in the town that you live in, how you basically came to be, how you came to exist. And I think also with that, this acknowledgement that you have a complex background and story and trying to figure that out, that also means that people will, the same way with any woman up on a pedestal, they'll be trying to figure out and nitpick her beauty routines and her secrets. This happens at a greater degree for us because with that, I think that when somebody is more so unambiguous, it's easier if you were going to place them up on a pedestal, especially if they're monocultural, to basically just try to go run down the list and try to confirm whether or not their beauty is coming from, this routine or this secret that basically is owned by whatever culture, race you place them in. But I think when you're harder to place, it is more mysterious how even you maintain yourself, like how you even came to look like that, how you maintain that, what you do, different stories. People are just wondering because people associate you with this exoticism. People are even wondering, even if you're the same nationality as somebody, they may assume that you have a part of your look from some sort of exotic beauty ritual or exotic beauty routine. And oftentimes that actually is true. It's exotic to the person who's meeting you because, due to your background and the fact that you're able to pull knowledge and information from so many different places and sources and cultures, it is exotic to the basic person who maybe just follows like influencer trends, and so they don't really know anything that's like historical or linked to a specific culture. It's got to be like TikTok trending in order for them to try it. I also feel like, that the connections to multiple cultures allows you to feel freer in like this patchwork of putting together rituals that work for your life in multiple different ways. So I touched just now on like your beauty, but also things like your productivity, like how you want your life to turn out. I feel like we have a lot more access to different types of habits, different types of lifestyles, different types of spirituality, family traditions, and like this knowledge of social etiquette that we can pull from different places. And I feel that when you are an exotical, you feel inherently that you don't have to wait for permission and that you are entitled to pull knowledge and just kind of take what resonates, leave what doesn't in multiple ways, because that's kind of how you have come out. Even let's say your parents are from two very different backgrounds, in order for you to come out looking the way you did with both of their DNA, your DNA literally like took what resonated and left what didn't. Like literally, like this trait in my family completely skipped over me. Like it just didn't resonate or something. And I think that there is just a consistent thread of freedom where I feel that even when it comes to other communities trying to talk about corrective promotion, I think that for us already having positive representation in the media, I view that as like a freedom to dream, because while I have personally never like been a casting director or anything like that, like thinking of like specifically like acting, and I think I'll also touch on music, I feel that casting is pretty intentional. Like I feel like whether it is like just access being like the intention behind why somebody was placed in a role, like, oh, they have the access, like looking at like the Michael Jackson movie, like Jafar Jackson, he got that role. I'm not going to say that he's not talented, but I would say that a lot of him being able to play that role has to do with access. It's, he's a part of the family in order to even be in the room, to even have somebody trying to either create a movie for him. Like that is something that happens when people have access. They, maybe people are trying to create a role for you. They're giving you access to play something or to use something, like even a prop. Even when you think of like the Michael Jackson glove, the people who have been able to access that, even like the Marilyn Monroe dresses, people get to access things like that because of access. That's what it is. Like because of them, achieving a certain status and being exclusive, people will give them access to certain things. And sometimes that access comes, it's like access that they're basically grandfathered into, or that's passed down into them, or it comes as a result of what they've built for themselves or what their family has built for them. And, that sometimes is the reason that somebody's afforded certain resources. Sometimes it is also talent. But I think that in general, like I assume that people think about who can play a role, who should play a role, who shouldn't. I'm going to make another video about that. Actually, no, I'm going to touch on that right now. I didn't really speak about this because recently I've been emailing with a subscriber, or I think maybe they're a subscriber. I don't know if they are, but they basically like were saying something to me, like giving me a video idea. Obviously, I'm not going to post them or the email or anything, but they like were saying that they wanted me to make a video and they wanted me to use their email and everything. And then they said they didn't want to, and I want to respect their wishes. So I'm not going to touch on any of their personal, like identifying attributes or anything, but I will still they definitely did inspire me for the video. And I had recorded an entire video, but I was kind of like reading line for line and breaking down their entire email. So I figure, it's best to just scrap it, preserve their privacy, and just, allow myself to be inspired and protect their identity and things like that. Everybody's not always comfortable. But, even on the topic of one of the things that came up as we were communicating was the acting industry, and this person, they were concerned with certain roles in Hollywood and how people end up playing this role or how they end up playing that role. And they were basically expressing this view that they feel like people should strongly fit the ethnic background of the historical significance of, who was what in a movie and all of that. And I want to say, me personally, hey, sue me. I don't feel like we needed a Black mermaid, but I love my good sis having a job. And that's not even what the person was talking about. They were talking about a different movie. I think like Helen of Troy or something. But for me, I'm a big believer in it, and I've said this before, and I'll say this a million times again. I love Zendaya, but I would never build my brand on and this, her brand actually is not built on this, which is why she does so amazing. One opinion she has expressed before, I'm assuming mainly virtue signaling, which I'm going to say that that's just her being smart, but saying I wouldn't play this role even though they wanted me in this role because that should go to a dark skinned actress. It's they're going to cast who they want to cast for the most part with things, whether they are considering talent, whether they are considering access, whether they are, and what I think oftentimes is the case, they're thinking about a look that they want to portray, whether it is going with what people feel is the woke agenda, whether it is something that is going with the more traditional agenda. I think a lot of times, depending on the role and the character, they're trying to decide who they want to feel inspired after the movie, who they want to feel there's somebody who looks like me on the screen. And like I said, sometimes it's just virtue signaling at times. But the person I was talking to, they were basically saying that, they feel what made me feel like maybe they were not a subscriber is the fact that they were saying they were naming off different exoticals, she shouldn't have played in this role, she shouldn't have played in that role, she shouldn't have played in that role. And they were going down very specifically such and such, this exotical, her background is really this, and this role, the background was that, and then and for me, I was just well, I can't say that I necessarily agree with that. I don't personally have any issue with exoticals getting their bags. I don't have any issue with them getting their money. And I'm a big believer in that actually is part of that for me to want them to not be able to play a role if they don't to a T fit the ethnic background of the role. That would basically be me wanting them to not experience their privilege, which I don't believe in that. I don't believe that, the people to punish for the corrupt system that we live under is the people who are experiencing the privilege. Yes, I, as an exotical, am going to support other exoticals not being able to pay their bills because, I'm going to DNA test them and say, no, you can't play that role, even though they clearly feel like you look like somebody who could play that role. And they clearly want to pay you. And they clearly want little girls who look like you to feel good about themselves, by you playing in this role. Or, I just didn't agree with that view. There was other things they were talking about in that, but that's something I wanted to touch on that, I think that is part of what people view as an unfair advantage because of your ambiguity. It's maybe I'm not such and such, background, but I sure will pay my bills off of playing that role. And people will want to pay you, whether they care strongly about what your background is or not, or whether, like, it doesn't matter. If they want you to play the role, they're going to. And I think even in music, this exists where you'll have songwriters like maybe a Money Long, or even I think Megan Trainor was another one who started out as a as a songwriter specifically, I believe, where like they're writing music, but they don't necessarily fit the aesthetic of the target demographic of people who like the production and the label wants to listen to it, like who they're trying to get to listen to it. And they're like, some of these people is that they just don't want to be in the spotlight. But I think there are also times where artists, they write something and people, like, they don't want the song to be a flop. They know people are shallow and they're like, maybe you shouldn't be the one to deliver this song, or maybe you shouldn't be the one to deliver this message. So then they pass it over to Rihanna, they pass it over to Britney Spears, they pass it over to somebody else, because when you do fit the aesthetic, people want the message to be delivered by you. And this happens so often, which is why I think, this is one of my theories around like a lot of singer-songwriters who are exoticals. I think one that's coming to mind right now is LMI. I remember I used to have somebody that, like, we would joke and clown. This is not something I'm proud of, but we would clown LMI's, like, her poetry and her style of like writing music. Like, if I'm thinking about probably like circa 2018, maybe 2018, maybe 2017, but I would say 2018. She's got whatever that album is, where at the end, she's like, and love, flip that round and all. to this day, I kind of laugh about it, but I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like back in the day, I was being a hater. And honestly, the person that I was around was a very bad influence, was influencing me to be a hater, because that was not even an original opinion that I had. That's crazy. I like just thinking about that. But I feel like it's easier for people to try to critique like your artistry, or to try to hold you to this higher standard of being the best singer ever, the best dancer ever, the best artist ever, just everything. You have to be the most, like, just perfect everything, just because people already feel like you have an unfair advantage. So if you decide to, like, artistically express yourself at the end of your music with a cute little poem or something like that you're really feeling, people are going to clown you harder, because it's like, oh, you have the unfair advantage though. Which I feel like there are ways to make that work for you, where one, I feel like because of the positive representation, you already, like when I was saying having the freedom to dream, I defined leveling up in one of my previous videos. I think I said like, what is leveling up actually, or something like that. I was basically saying that it's being able to create and, really sustain the life that you want. And I think people, they look at you as being a representation of being leveled up in the first place. And so I think, one, it's easier to see yourself doing great and amazing, very ambitious, very like hard things, and be more fearless with it anyways, because it's almost like, that you already fit the bill. So it's easier to be creative. It's easier to be authentic. And I feel like I actually think that the whole LMI thing was not like a completely unique thing to the person that I used to talk to who would say that. I think that was something that multiple people said, but I think that was because specifically of her phenotype. I think that a lot of people feel like when you have it so easy, even when it comes to like Mariah Carey, she's another one I could think of. I would say like Mariah the Scientist gets it. People would never be able to play this with like a British singer like Olivia Dean, but there's a whole other reason for that I believe. But people make it seem like, well, because you already have the phenotype, you already have the look and everything. Okay, well, now you need to be like breakdancing, and you need to be like a Dancing with the Stars winner level dancer. You need to be like Juilliard trained. You have to be doing, you have to be soulful. I feel like a lot of people, they definitely always want a social climb off of the achievements of Exoticals. And so I feel people will judge you heavier if you don't popularize, if they feel like you're not representing specifically for them, like they want to lump you in with them, but people don't like when they feel like they still can't see themselves in you. So to them, it will be an issue if you are not maybe singing in the typical, like, lungs of steel, crazy, soulful, powerful, like just singing the house down. Not everybody sings like that. That's not everybody's style of singing. And I do feel like a lot of people expect you to represent and to use your platform, how I say, like, they want you to be the one speaking their message, whether that is even their hairstyles. They want you to be representing for them. They want you to be using their accessories. They want you to be dressing like them. They want you to be talking and walking like them. They want you to basically be the one to bridge the gap to show the rest of the world that how they exist is okay. But you can't allow people to police you and box you into one expression of your identity, or only one narrow portion of it. You get to be who you actually want to be. And I think people don't understand that, just because we have that advantage of people liking women like us, people uplifting women like us globally, doesn't mean that when we get the microphone that we have to now speak up for you. And this is making me think of like conversations around intersectional feminism. I feel that, I've even noticed that, social justice warrior land is so interesting, because I remember when intersectional feminism was like this really important, really like, oh my God, like it's such a new thing. Or I don't know if I want to call it new, but it was something that people were talking about, like, oh, let's talk about the way that feminism, or gender dynamics, gender oppression, or gender-based oppression is interacting with your religion. And let's talk about how it is interacting with your socioeconomic status. Let's talk about all that. But then it also it went too far. And then it was like, actually, wait, like, no, now this is erasing. And a lot of people would come with this view. I noticed, like, in the Black community, that like first wave feminism wasn't created for Black women. So it is really weird then to have intersectional feminism come, and then it's like all of a sudden, all of the women who were not welcome into feminism in the first place are now supposed to grab the mic and then fight for everybody else, and instead of fighting for their own causes. And I think that this is similar to this, like not exactly the same, but I think that it's okay to decide that, yeah, I don't, and this is going to sound bad, but it's like, it's okay to just talk about the causes that are important to you. Like whatever's important or special to you, like it's important enough. It doesn't have to be important to more people for it to be worthy of a cause for you to bring up, for it to be worthy of something for you to fight for, like something that you want, like an area you want to leave a lasting impact on the world in. You don't have to be anybody else's talking head, say, oh, with my platform, I'm going to just, push your agenda and your ideology. You can use your voice for whatever you want to use your voice for. But a lot of people don't like that. But I think a lot of us inherently know that, because I think for a lot of us, whenever we see somebody who looks like us, she is just so diverse and, so much nuance to her experience and what she is passionate about and her culture and her background. And it's so often to find another girl that you feel like, you look like you could be sisters, but they have just this completely different experience culturally and ethnically, and, even socioeconomic status. And just her life has been, so many different shades of something similar that you can relate to, that you almost see that, oh, so I don't even have to fit the bill amongst all of the women who are also exoticals. I don't even have to preach the same exact message in this way. I think it's actually a very freeing thing to experience. And that freedom is something that so many people are trying to attain, even when it comes to people trying to, build their financial independence and everything. It's because they're trying to get freedom. Even people who, I think a lot of women who are very heavily set on chasing relationships, they're trying to feel this freedom of, sorry, somebody going past my window, but I think a lot of women want to be, and I'm going to be honest, I think people, like, they want to feel like they've checked off that box, so it's okay if they let themselves go and all of that because they already have this validation of having been chosen. I've noticed this, so many of the women that I feel like have tried to discourage me from, putting time and effort into myself and making it seem like I do too much for myself, and other women that I've met has been the women who are in these really bad, dusty marriages, who they have settled for less and they want you to as well. Like, they don't want you to feel like you're doing more than they are. They don't like the freedom and they lack that freedom. A lot of them, the freedom that they have chosen doesn't feel as free as they thought it would. They want to have this feeling of like, oh, well, my man's still going to love me anyways, even if I do X, Y, Z, but it doesn't actually feel as carefree as just having the body regardless of the man. That doesn't, it doesn't feel as free when you're outsourcing your level of where you need to hold yourself to how other people feel about you, especially like a partner. And I think that for a lot of them, they can be jealous of the freedom that we have in our beauty, even to be inspired in so many different ways, to not feel inferior when it comes to taking advice or when it comes to just implementing different beauty routines, different health advice, just different information, being somebody who has access to different shades of femininity and different ways of being a woman, even when it comes to being able to connect to different ways of accessorizing yourself, different ways to connect to religion or spirituality. And I think self-expression in general, when you are benefiting from ambiguity as an exotical, I think in general you just don't, because you're not fearing negative stereotypes, I think you just feel freer to express yourself in general. And I'm not thinking about, oh, I can't do this or that because I don't want to be the only Black person in the room who's doing this, or like little things like, oh, I'm at the cookout, the work cookout with all the white people and I don't want to eat watermelon because I don't want to be the only Black person who's eating watermelon. Well, like, I don't think that people look at me and just see like, those really offensive looking cartoons and just like I don't feel like people see me in that way for me to feel like, oh, I feel like I'm being a coon when I'm eating watermelon. Like, I don't feel like that. I don't have that same fear. And I feel like for a lot of exoticals, they don't have all of these fears around being perceived a certain way. And I will say that on the flip side, you also have people when it comes to interacting with you where I don't think that they feel as afraid of offending you as they would somebody else, especially like an unambiguous, dark-skinned, monoracial, monocultural Black woman. I actually was like checking out of a store the other day and there was like a clerk there that was like that type of art, like background and everything. And she was like nice to me. She like gave me a compliment and everything. And I was so not expecting that because one, I don't really hang out in many environments where I see those kind of women. And two, I think that like patterns have just proven to me so often that, especially like being like, and a lot of people are talking a lot about like being the bubbly type of girl who identifies with Blackness, can be rough, just especially because like I think that you can often be viewed by other women as being a traitor, like not like they will actually take like a personal offense. Like, you don't care about what I care about. You're not as stressed as I am. You're not fighting for the same mission. You're living a more carefree life. You don't feel as oppressed. You don't get as dysregulated as I do. You're not speaking out about the same things. You can't relate to my experiences. That can make a lot of women just carry around a lot of anger. And they're very like sensitive to being set off, especially, always being set off feeling like it is a racial thing or a color thing specifically, versus I think when you're the type of person where you can relate to people in different ways, and you're I think there are ways that you can just like through your phenotype, through your multiculturalism, through the way that you express yourself and your mannerisms, you can make it very clear to certain people. Certain people are just going to be who they are in general. But I think it's easier to connect with diverse backgrounds of people when you kind of just like make it clear and kind of give them this go ahead that like, you don't have to walk around eggshells around me. Like, I'm not going to just be like, hold on, gun to your head. Let's talk about politics. How do you feel about this black issue? Like, I don't want to talk about that either. Or if I do want to talk about it, like, I probably won't be as offended by your opinion as somebody else would. I probably will have an opinion on it that you might not expect somebody like me to have, just because I think a lot of people who are exoticals do give very performative, like light skin savior type of viewpoints on certain things, or they're allowing themselves to be bullied into unambiguous blackness, and so they don't know that they're allowed to think for themselves yet. But I also feel like one of the freedoms and unfair advantages people stereotype exoticals as having is that we're just like much more comfortable like finding ourselves and being ourselves. I don't know why right now I'm thinking of like that video. It was like TikTok where it's like the scary, very like scary, not because of her color, but scary because of her demeanor. But scary looking black girl talking about, oh yeah, I went to the friends with my light skinned friends who I apparently hate and never want to see again because they got more attention by doing less than I did. But like even things like that, just being yourself, like, I think a lot of people, especially in the black community, can feel pressure going to like a party to like know all of the dances, know all of the songs, to dance the exact way, and that you're supposed to, and it's got to be which for me I think has always been an issue, because it's like I might not be able to rap along to the song about unaliving people because I don't know, me personally, I don't listen to music like that in my free time. I might not be able to rap along to this song or dance along to this song perfectly because maybe it just doesn't resonate with my lifestyle. But I think even something like that, like you're just at a party and you're just like, I'm just going to be myself. Like, yeah, I think that's something people can be threatened by if you don't feel the need to like try to gain their approval. And I think one, that can be attractive, but I think it also can be done in a way that's not male centered. And it's not like, oh, I'm trying to strategize. It could just be literally, I'm just being myself. I don't know how to dance to this music. I don't want to dance to this music. I don't want my ass cheeks flapping like up by like, I don't want to do that. So just being myself, like even things like that, people will have an issue with, and they'll feel like that's an unfair advantage. Like you have the advantage of being able to be yourself and be comfortable with yourself, and then still be able to, I guess, attract male attention. People get very jealous over, and I will say that it crosses over from jealousy into envy, because they feel sometimes, as if you were not there, then they would be able to, live the life of their dreams. And that is not the case. Like sometimes the life of their dreams is really just a dream, and it's like unrealistic for what they want in the first place. And you're not really actually keeping them away from any opportunity or any dating option. Like maybe you're not actually standing in the way of them and their, desires the way that they feel that you are. They're trying to blame you for things that you're not to blame for. But many of us are aware that we are one of one, and we can feel that in a deeper sense. And I feel that is why there's been something you'll notice with extremely envious male-centered populations. Like you'll notice this, especially with the unambiguous dark-skinned black community. They're always trying to take away individuality from some person that they place on a pedestal. So that can look like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to think about if this is which phenotype of women specifically this is that they say this about. I don't know, because I don't keep up with their content well enough, but I do remember there's this point where like copy and paste was used, or like I'm trying to think Let me know in the comments below if I'm remembering this properly, but there's something like, I know that the whole preference thing was a thing, which I think is also another version of that. There's also like the version of trying to say like, oh, two light skinned people can't date each other, or then all of a sudden they look like siblings. It's like, yeah, because of the fact that we are both light skinned, now you all of a sudden cannot notice that we have different facial structures, and that we have different facial features, and that we have different colored eyes, and that we have different hair, and that we very clearly, obviously to people, I guess like maybe they're not trolling. Maybe we really do look the same to them. But if that's the case, like, I don't know. I have felt like there are certain people who are not the same phenotype as me who kind of all look the same. But I don't know. I think it's generally with people who are very unambiguous. I think that's the case. Usually with people who have some sort of ambiguity, me personally, like I am fascinated by the beauty. I feel like the beauty is relatable to me, and I don't know. I just feel like it's more distinctive to me. But I guess it's not always a common thing. And I think whenever you're trying to call a woman like a copy and paste, or like just a preference, or saying that people like they look like siblings or whatever that is, it's like you're trying to induce, or like you're trying to create an inferiority complex that doesn't exist. And the reason I feel like this is an inferiority complex is because a lot of people, they really want to feel like they have some sort of sense of individuality. And what a lot of people don't realize, and this is something that I have been trying to fight back against on my channel with some of my recent opinions, but I feel as though I don't feel like just because you have a similar phenotype to another woman, or let's say you have two women who just kind of similar phenotype and then happen to dress and like maybe they're from the same culture and they dress in like a kind of traditional, kind of typical cultural type of way or whatever. If you can think of like, oh, this is how women from this place dress, or this is how women from this place dress, like thinking about that, I guess me personally, I just see more humanity into people. And so I'm not going to say like, oh, they're a copy and paste. I'm going to be like, no, that is Nina. No, that is Trina. That's Keisha. That's whatever. Like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, that's just this copy and paste. I think that's just very dehumanizing. That's a very dehumanizing way to look about things. And sometimes I know that some of my viewers have been exposed to content like that. You've been exposed to people trying to basically say like, oh yeah, you should never feel special or happy about anything that ever happens to you or for you. You should never feel special about your beauty, or anything, because, you're just a copy and paste and you're just a preference. And, there's 20,000 million other girls who look just like you and blah, blah, blah. And, I don't really like that. Like, and when they're acting like that, it is a very sick thing to me, because I feel like it is gaslighting, and a lot of times I view it as being like kind of predatory and like trying to guilt people out of expressing their preferences, or trying to lead them to a different conclusion on what they want other than the one that they've already landed on. But I feel like they're trying to make you feel like you aren't special, when to me, I do feel like you are special. And I don't feel like your beauty is the most special thing about you, because of the fact that I think that because of the fact that so many people are trying to date us and create us, we have to be aware of the fact that we are going to become the majority at a certain point if we're not already. And so if we allow certain rhetoric to exist that like, people are copying, or they're like, they're trying to be like, I don't love that, because I think that it almost kind of feeds into some of those like unambiguous talking points where it's like, you are a copy and paste, you look like everybody else, you don't have any individuality. I'm like, okay, maybe you look like Pocahontas, maybe she looks like Pocahontas, but to me, you're the girl who looks like Pocahontas who does this, and you're special. And to me, I don't know, I just feel like people are special, and I feel like it's dehumanizing. And it's a way that when people view you as having an unfair advantage, that they try to even out the playing field, because they see the confidence that comes with knowing that you're free from that type of baggage, of like carrying the inferiority complex that they have, that they carry around everywhere. And I also feel that we, like, going back to the fact that I feel like everybody wants to date us or create us, I feel like we're becoming a majority. And that's what's going to happen over time. There eventually, because so many people who are unambiguous want to date or create ambiguous people. They want to create exoticals. What that means is that we're going to have a lot of people wanting to live vicariously through us and becoming parasocially connected to our lives. I will say nobody gets more parasocially connected to a celebrity than the way that people get parasocially connected to exoticals. You see this with male exoticals. You see this with women who are exoticals. Regardless, they care about the craziest things. Like I've ended up down a rabbit hole the other night where I just started to realize, even just thinking about certain celebrities, I almost feel like if you're an exotical celebrity, I feel like your whole family has a better chance of becoming famous just because of the way that people become parasocially connected to you and your whole life and everything that's going on. But people they will want to stalk us. They will want to give us ill advice. They will want to hate on us, all adding to our pedestal in society. But the thing is, the fact that they're creating more of us, that creates more opportunities for us, because that means that over time, there's going to be more situations where you're in a hiring situation and there's another exotical who's going to be deciding whether or not to give you the job. There's going to be, you want to take on this career and you're going to be able to see, as you already have been able to, likely, but increasingly so, more people who look just like you, oh yeah, there's exotical astronauts everywhere. There are exotical actresses everywhere. That's a big area that we kill it, music, as well, also athletics. Oh yeah, there are exotical athletes everywhere. That is so easy for me to have that dream. But I think in general, a lot of people just kind of view us as a symbol of the soft life. And more as the days go by, we are becoming associated with, and we are the look of the soft life. That's why so many women, if you notice, women, especially if they're the type of unambiguous creator who talks a lot about femininity and everything, you're going to notice that in her look, she's trying to increase her ambiguity. She's trying to look more like an exotical, because exoticals are basically, people see us as having the soft life, and it's all these different ways. And there are more ways that I could point out, but these are just some of the ones that I took down, just a couple little notes where people are associating us as being representative of the soft life, being representative of multiculturalism. But what do you think, worldies? Let me know down in the comments below. Until next time, worldies, eyes on the prize.